September 7th, 1983 is a very important date in my personal timeline. Reason being is that on that day, in the UK, on the proto-CITV, as had just begun when it was still presented by Tommy Boyd and Matthew Kelly, they actually showed a very interesting programme. And it was a programme that was being shown quite a little while before the States. I think they got it on September the 26th. We were the first country in the world to be shown the cartoon for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe by Filmation. Yeah, doesn't happen very often, things like that, but it did happen with He-Man, and my 6-year-old mind was entirely blown. I had not been exposed to what they like to call the toy advert cartoons, because they weren't really around. I mean, the He-Man toy line had been started by Mattel in 1982 and had made an impact. I do remember it being around, but it was the cartoon that really cemented the idea of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And He-Man at that point became my personal hero. Everything I wanted to be, everything I wanted to do in life sort of revolved around He-Man, and for a long time that was my complete favourite franchise in the universe. Nothing would come anywhere near it until Transformers debuted sort of the year after that, but really I suppose that was even 1985 for us in the UK. So the He-Man cartoon was very important for me. It showed me a superhero that basically was completely incorruptible. A lot of people use that as a criticism of He-Man, and quite frankly I don't see it. I kind of like the fact that he is completely incorruptible. He is completely moralistic all the time. He can't, there's no possible other way of He-Man becoming evil. There has been with there has been with Superman and Batman and every other hero in the universe, but He-Man tends to stay right down the middle, complete straight arrow. And like I said, I can sort of understand why people would get annoyed with that, but it never was about He-Man was the cartoon. It was always about He-Man's friends. He-Man was not a plot device as such. He-Man is a very important character in the canon, but you can always rely on He-Man is the thing. The one time that he thought that he had killed someone, the one time that he thought that he'd done something in the problem with power, he completely got rid of his powers straight away and said, nope, that's it, I've done something wrong, I can't possibly be He-Man anymore. And I like that about He-Man. I always liked the fact that it was just he was that straight arrow, that he can be relied upon, that he is good incarnate, because Skeletor is evil incarnate. But even with Skeletor, there's a little bit of goodness in there, very, very buried deep, but it is there. But He-Man, yeah, he is the man, he's the guy. I still love He-Man to this day. As a kid, I completely wanted to be He-Man. Maybe a little bit Skeletor, because I think every kid likes to be the bad guy occasionally. But He-Man was always the one that you wanted to be in the playground, because he was the most powerful man in the universe, not only with bronze but also with brain. That was the whole point. In fact, 9 times out of 10 he would rather sit down and talk about a problem, and he would rather sort it out in a non-violent fashion than to actually start punching things. His power was intrinsically part of him. But as Stan Lee said about Spider-Man and a lot of other heroes, with great power comes great responsibility, and He-Man felt that more than most, I think. So obviously it was about the Masters as well, and they were all brilliant, but He-Man stood head and shoulders above everyone because, it's his name in the title, folks. He is kind of the important character. I mean, again, the fact that he had no real weaknesses, apart from compassion, you see, this is the thing. But apart from that, physically, he didn't really have any weaknesses, and a lot of people would say that that was to detriment of the show and to detriment of the fiction. But I completely disagree and refute that. I think the whole point of the fiction was the fact that his compassion is his main weakness. The fact that He-Man loves all living things. Doesn't matter whether you're evil or good or whatever. He cares. And he wants everything living to have the chance to thrive, survive, and be good and do good with its life. And that was his main weakness, because Skeletor and the other villains would always play on that and harm his companions if they could, to get at He-Man. So, you've got a bit of a Superman thing going on there. And in fact, obviously they did meet, Superman being totally poleaxed by He-Man on a couple of occasions, because He-Man is a magical creature, whereas Superman is vulnerable to magic. But He-Man himself, played by John Irwin, in the original cartoon, he did both Adam's voice and He-Man's voice, and yeah, there is a difference, but you can still tell it's the same person, and physically they were often very, very much the same. This would change in 2000X, which I think is a good thing, but you know, Filmation, they had a limited budget. They had a good budget from Mattel, but it was limited, so they could only do what they were able to do, and what they were able to do is make them look a bit similar, except He-Man's a lot more tanned. Obviously, the toys didn't really resemble the cartoon at that point, and the Masters of the Universe Classics don't either tend to actually resemble the Filmation models that much. Not in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, the toys didn't. So He-Man in the toys, especially the mini-comics, wasn't the happy-go-lucky Prince Adam type that we knew in his alter ego, and he certainly wasn't the happy quipping guy that we saw in the Filmation cartoon. He was more barbarian-y, because obviously the toy line was a reaction to, and possibly was originally supposed to be, a Conan the Barbarian line of toys, but that obviously didn't work out for Mattel or the De Laurentiis. But you could still see everything was there. Everything was there that had been set up. So in the mini-comics especially, he wasn't the son of King Randor and Queen Marlena. He was just a barbarian who wandered around the land doing good and fighting creatures and getting into all kinds of scrapes. That kind of changed when the Filmation cartoon came out, and the mini-comics would then sort of use that as the model. Go their own way, but still have Prince Adam as the son of Marlena and Randor, and fighting Skeletor, etc., etc. Whereas in the mini-comics, to begin with, Skeletor was from Infinita, the Dark Dimension, and lots of him were trying to get through to Eternia, which was just a planet that had been ravaged in the Great War. I think Transformers might have informed that a little bit as well later on, and sort of made them veer away from that storyline. So yeah, He-Man. Of course, in the DC comics is completely different, but I've not really read them, so I can't really comment on that. Certainly in the comics with Marvel and that, they tried to go down the route of Filmation, but the problem was, there were that many stories being brought out with Filmation, they didn't follow it completely. So you got some weird hybrids, where sometimes the goddess would appear instead of the sorceress, so you would get her, and obviously it would be a bit mini-comic-y, early mini-comic-y occasionally, so it wouldn't be by the power of Grayskull and all that. Just a word on the power of Grayskull. It turned out that the power of Grayskull was actually not the power of Castle Grayskull. It was the power of King Grayskull, who was the ruler of Grayskull in Eternia's dim and distant past, who had collated all his energy and put it into the catacombs of Castle Grayskull to be used whenever Eternia needed it most. So He-Man was an amalgamation of Prince Adam and King Grayskull. King Grayskull, that's where he gets his power from. That's why he says, by the power of Grayskull, that he has the power of Grayskull. So yeah, I always liked that, and I wish they sort of kept 2000X going a little bit more, so we could have seen exactly where that went. But obviously King Grayskull died, and that's when he collected all his energy up and sent it into the catacombs to be discovered by Adam. We don't really see an origin story in the Filmation series. We obviously do in the MYP series, the Mike Young Productions series. But in the Filmation series, it just kind of is implied that that's the way it's always been. Prince Adam found this magic sword, and then he became He-Man. The mini-comics in the Mike Young series do suggest that he was always fated to have found the power sword. Yeah, that's pretty much it on He-Man. Obviously, you need to see Filmation. If you've not seen the Filmation series, you need to see it, because it is brilliant. It's dated. Of course it's dated. It's 30-odd years old. You know, there's no way that a cartoon series that old isn't going to get dated. But you need to see it, because it's brilliant, and it's really good, and its heart is in the right place. You know, that was the thing, Lou Scheimer, from every documentary you will ever see about the guy, it certainly seems that his heart was in the right place, and he wanted to do good in the world. And part of doing good in the world, he thought, was by introducing He-Man to everybody. And that's why He-Man has got a lot of heart in the cartoon. That's why He-Man is such an enduring character, because he's such a nice guy. you know, he's got all this power. He can basically take over the world if he wanted to. But he chooses not to because he's a nice guy and he wants to do good in the world. It's kind of like, again, like Superman. There's a lot of Superman in He-Man, a lot of He-Man in Superman. They are both nice guys who want to do good in the world. You know, want to serve humanity with all their power. And even, you know, it doesn't matter what, if you're human or alien or whatever, he just wants living things to be nice and thrive and everyone to live in harmony. And it's not his fault that that doesn't happen. Blame Skeletor for that one, and Hordak and all the rest of them. They're all nasty bastards, really. But there you go, that's He-Man. Quintessential nice guy and extremely bloody powerful to boot. Speaking of which, here we go. This is the main event. This is the Masters of the Universe Classics He-Man figure, based really heavily on the original Mattel figure from the 1980s, from 1982. I love this guy so much. I'm going to just take off all his weapons though, so we can have a good look at the figure itself. Now, it is quintessentially He-Man. There is no doubt about it. You will not mistake this guy for anybody else. The face sculpt on this thing, if you can see it there, is marvellous. It's sort of based on the original He-Man from the 80s. But the hair is a little bit more modern. It's a little bit more Mike Young. You've definitely got a lot of Mike Young He-Man in the face sculpt at the very least. I think so anyway, and I think that's for the good. I always thought He-Man looked old in his original figure. He looked quite a lot old, but he was definitely given the ripped, pumped look that was very popular with bodybuilders in the early 80s and wrestlers, and you will see it in the 80s a lot, that sort of Venice Beach muscle-bound look is very popular. And Schwarzenegger, you know, that's exactly what he looked like. He then has the power vest, which does come off. I'll just take that off for you very quickly. It's got like a bracer on the back, and then you can just take it off over his arms like so. You can see his ripped muscles. He did actually appear quite a lot in the early mini comics like that, just normal ripped. But it gives you a good idea of the articulation of this guy. Obviously he's got the furry loincloth, which is, you know, that's pretty standard in He-Man. And he's got these nice booties with the fur at the top. I would have liked the fur maybe to be, I don't know, white or something, but he wasn't really white in the comics of the cartoon, so it doesn't matter so much. But yeah, very, very nice figure. I especially like the detail on the belt. That is exactly like the old belt from when we were kids. Loving that a lot. I do like the fact that it's actually got filled in bits on the jewels now, rather than what it was in the 80s. He's also got double gauntlets on his arms there. He's got the single one, like the wristband that goes around his arm, and then he's got the other one on his arm there, the arm protector, the arm greave, I suppose you'd call it. But other than that, there's not really much to talk about. He is obviously just a muscle-bound hero, is what he is. He's got good articulation though. His head does go round 360 degrees, so that you get a good look at that head sculpt again. It's very, very nice. I do like the fact that the hair it's textured as well. If you run your finger over it, it's textured, and it's got different colours in there as well, slightly browny colours. So it's not just sort of uniformly blonde. Obviously he's got the ab crunch there. He's got good articulation in the arms. It goes round and round and round, up and down as well, like so. He's got a bicep swivel. He's got an elbow crunch there, and his wrists go round, which is good, which is cool. Turns at the waist very nicely. Whoops, get him out of the way so I can turn him. Sadly, he's not got the action feature that the old He-Man figures had, where you pull him like that and he went boom like that. So punching action. He's not got that, but that's fine. That's okay. And the legs, he can do a Perceptor kick very nicely any day of the week. His leg can do what you want it to, because he's on a ball swivel and a little. He can go up and down as well. I don't know what you call that. What would you call that? I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments. He's got jointed knees, which are very, very nice. He's got the boot cut swivel. His ankles are on rockers, which is nice, and they do go up and down as well on his foot, which is great. All in all, good articulation. But these all have good articulation to the MOTUC figures. They've all got this really good articulation, which makes them really, really nice to stand up and pose. in anything that you want. Now, of course, we will put back on his Vest of Power, which looks exactly the same as it did when we were kids, which is amazing. I really like the fact that this looks no different. It's even got the little red dots going up that he didn't have in the cartoon, but he did have on the toy, which is nice. And like I say, it sort of fits on in his back there, and then you've got this bracer, which also includes this little holster for his power sword, which we'll talk about in a bit. So they just pop into the two posts on his vest there, power vest. Now, of course, in the comics, this is where he got a lot of his power from. This Vest of Power. Yeah, it's a special metal that in the cartoon was mentioned as well. And with this, he becomes very, very powerful. His sword's made out of the same material, which is really, really funny, because I thought it was just magic, but apparently he gets some of the power from the vest. Now, because he is very much like the toy He-Man, he comes with the toy's weapons, which were a shield with the cross on it, the He-Man cross. That just fits in either, but I tend to put it on this arm. And that just literally just clips on his arm. It's got a clip on the back and clips on his arm like that, and holds really, really well. It doesn't fall off, it's not loose or anything. It's really, really cool. He's also got his battle axe, which is a bit more detail on it. Now, Skeletor has the same battle armor Skeletor, so you have seen this before if you watch my channel, but it's just in grey, and it's got silvery bits where the metallic purple bits were last time on Skeletor's battle axe, and that obviously just goes in his arm there, goes in his hand, and that is Mini Comics toy He-Man. Very rarely use the power sword, because in the mini comics, the power sword was actually kind of a Skeletor thing. You would get two halves, and you do get another half with this. You can join with Skeletors, but I haven't got it on me at the moment. You literally put them both together, and then the idea was that went into Castle Grayskull's hole on the Jaw Bridge, opened Castle Grayskull, Skeletor could then gain entry. But it wasn't... He-Man had half the power sword, but he tended not to use it. He tended to use his battle axe. And I kind of like He-Man's battle axe toy look. That's the look I generally have him in, if I'm being honest, because that's how I had it when I was a kid. Now, of course, if you go in Filmation, then you need the power sword, because this is the thing that basically grants him his power and turns him into He-Man from Prince Adam. So he basically holds aloft his magic sword and says, "By the power of Grayskull," and there you go. He transforms from Prince Adam into He-Man. Now, sadly, you can't really do the pose. It's not bad, but it's not exactly the same. New Adventures He-Man has a different wrist, so you can actually lift it up so it looks properly like he's doing the holding aloft motion. I fully anticipate at some point He-Man having a re-release with that, just for completeness, because Mattel knows that people will buy it. But saying that, this isn't bad either. This looks really good. Now, there's a company out there who I'm going to actually link to in the show notes down the bottom there. They actually do backgrounds, so you can actually have He-Man with a background at the back there, covered in the white power that he was in the cartoon, transforming into He-Man, so you can actually have him in that pose. Even better, there's one at the side, so you can actually bring Battle Cat in and have them together transforming into He-Man and Battle Cat, which I think is awesome, personally. I think that is so cool, being a He-Man fanboy that I am. Anyway, you've got the power sword there, so again, rendered really nicely. It's nice and silvery and bright and not flimsy. It's really hard plastic that you want. It's really, really well done. Now that, like I say, goes into the holster on his back there, as it would have done in the show, and absolutely fine, and really, really nice. It holds there really, really nicely. Doesn't get in the way of anything. Really well done, Mattel, on that one. But like I say, normally I have him with his shield and his battle axe on, with his sword on his back, because that's how I would have had him as a kid. And mostly how I would display him as a kid is next to Castle Grayskull, which I haven't got down at the moment. I really want the classics one as well. So if anybody knows how to hook me up with one of those in the next few months, please let me know. But normally I would have He-Man displayed on top of Battle Cat, because obviously that's his trusted noble steed. So I would just have him sort of in this kind of a pose, just riding along on the back of Battle Cat there. Oh, and by the way, you cannot believe how much of a treat it is to have He-Man and Battle Cat together. After all this time, after all these years, I have a He-Man and a Battle Cat. I'm so nerdily excited and happy about it. As I was, I mean, I said in the Battle Cat video a few months back, you know, how happy I was to have Battle Cat on his own there, but at the same time, I'd already got He-Man as well. So to have them both is just amazing. I'm so happy. So thank you very much to Private Spoon who sold me this, because that was really cool of him. So yeah, just if you can get hold of these, please do. If you are any kind of He-Man fan, you've got to get a He-Man and a Battle Cat at least. I understand it's quite expensive. I mean, I was lucky. I got these for a song, literally. I did a little song and I bought, no, it wasn't quite that literally, but yeah, I got these for pennies for what they're actually worth. So if you can get hold of them, please do, because it's so cool to have a He-Man and a Battle Cat in your collection of any kind of 80s stuff, if that is what you are indeed a child of. Like I say, it seems to, I think they, you know, they have brought out the Mike Young ones as well. So if you do like the Mike Young 2000 series, do. But if you're any kind of Filmation fan or fan of He-Man from the 80s, you need a He-Man and Battle Cat in your life. I shall be back next week with, it's G.I. Joe, I think, next week. We're back around to G.I. Joe. So I shall be doing that, and then the week after we'll be on to Turtles, and I have a couple of new Turtles to have a look at. And I've got a new G.I. Joe figure to look at next week from the 90s. So join me then. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye for now.